All right, this is video 3 from week 1. We're calling it Meet Henrietta Lacks. So you read the first 26 pages of the book. You watched a quick video where Skloot described how she recreated historical events with such amazing accuracy. And then you had a little exercise where I just asked you to say what you thought of some of the characters. And that was actually a bit of note-taking, essentially, because if you look at the review sheet, you should have downloaded this review sheet right here, where you can see there's spots to take notes on characters, including Deborah Lacks, Gila. We're counting Gila as a character. We actually follow Gila as a plot character. I mean, if you look at the structure of the book, you can see that there is a plot line that has Gila as the central character. So in any case, the first exercise I wanted you to do there was to just take a look, start taking some notes on those characters. So for this video, I want to just emphasize a few points about the characters and a few other points about the book in general, and then this will be a lead-in to the next exercise. All right. So this is Deborah Lacks, the daughter, speaking at the beginning of the book. She says, "But I always have thought it was strange. If our mother Sel's done so much for medicine, how come her family can't afford to see no doctors?" And Deborah speaks in African-American vernacular English, and I'm not going to be very good at reproducing that. But it's worth noting that Skloot emphasizes that she renders Deborah's voice and the voice of all the other characters, all the other people she's met, as they speak, right? So we have to, there that is. All right. So, who are these people? Well, let's take a look at Henrietta Lacks. Here are just some very basic facts about her that you should have picked up. She was an African-American woman, and one of the things that I want to do in this course is talk frankly about race, because certainly the racial problems in our country won't get better unless we talk frankly about it. So we're going to be conscious the whole time of race and how that affects the people we're following. So Henrietta Lacks was an African-American woman. She was born 100 years ago and died in 1951. She was a poor tobacco farmer in Clover, Virginia. And Skloot does an amazing job of describing what that was like, how when they brought their tobacco to market, they had to sleep with the animals, that sort of thing. Her family moved to Turner Station, Maryland, which is right outside of Baltimore. It's a part of the Great Migration. And the Great Migration is a bit of history that they don't teach in your high schools, but people are beginning to learn about, throughout the 20th century, African Americans left the South and traveled north, and they settled in certain American cities. There are a large population settled in Baltimore, another one settled in Cleveland, also Lorraine, Milwaukee. All these cities were destination cities for the Great Migration. And people were fleeing Jim Crow, and what they found was other forms of discrimination. So why is Gila famous? Why is Henrietta Lacks famous? Well, a cell line called Gila was grown from a biopsy of her cervix, and that biopsy was used without her permission. By all accounts, she was a vibrant woman, and we know she loved children. She regretted the surgery she had because it made her unable to have children, although as it turns out, she wasn't going to live much longer anyway because her cervical cancer was so very aggressive. Skloot begins the story, actually, by talking about a class she took in community college, where the professor talks about the Gila cell line. And this passage struck me from early on. She says, then, matter-of-factly, almost as an afterthought, he said, she was a black woman. He erased her name with one fast swipe and blew the chalk from his hands. Class was over. So this illustrates a crucial theme in what we're talking about, erasure. One of the things that when you learn about the history of African Americans in the United States, you have to learn about erasure. That is, people's stories got erased from history. And one project that we have to engage in is uncovering that erased history. Deborah Lacks. Deborah Lacks is the daughter of Henrietta Lacks. We don't see much of her early on, and not at this point, but we already know that she is fairly suspicious of outsiders, and with good reason. We know that she's a very religious woman who believes that the spirit of her mother is at work in the world. Rebecca Skloot. Let's emphasize this. She's a middle-class white woman. Secular, grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Very different background than the people she's writing about. And that has to be something we need to think about the whole time we're doing this. And we want to evaluate what her role in this story is. It might be more complicated than you think. So she's the author of the book, and the main thing we know about her now is just that she's ridiculously motivated, right? I mean, this project is so... this was an enormous project. It took her years and years, and she had no contract. She was just maxing out her credit cards, thinking that she'd be able to pull it off, and she did. That's pretty impressive. The Gila cell line itself. This is the first line of immortal human cells. In the past, prior to the 50s, if you tried to grow human cells in a test tube, they would eventually die out. The cells taken from Henrietta Lacks's tumor on her cervix were incredibly robust. This probably also has to do with the fact that the tumor grew so rapidly in Lacks. Right? So it was an amazingly powerful cancer, which allowed it to continue to live in a test tube. And once you have a standard lab sample, you can use it for all sorts of science. So right away it was used to test the polio vaccine. It's probably right now being used to test coronavirus vaccines. It's used to test everything. It's just sort of your standard human cell. If you want to know how a drug interacts with a human cell, this is a go-to thing. And standardization is really important in science. You need to always be measuring things with the same ruler. Otherwise, there's no point in comparing things. And so the Gila cell line became a ruler. So it's foundational to modern medicine. All right. I've got some links, but if you download the PowerPoint, you can watch them. I'm not going to embed them here. Just videos of the Gila cell line dividing, evolving, growing. I think they're really quite pretty. So next steps. The next readings are not from The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. They are some foundational documents in bioethics, including the Nuremberg Code, the Helsinki Declaration, and most importantly, something called the Belmont Report, which was written in the 1970s and became the foundation for how we talk about ethics and medicine in the United States and actually worldwide now. So you're going to do an exercise applying the lessons of the Belmont Report to Henrietta Lacks. and then there's going to be another video, and that will end up this week.